Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Kimberly Cloud Show. I'm your host, Kimberly Cloud. It's an honor to have a very special guest here for the show today. Can you go ahead and announce to the world who you are and where you're calling from?
Fantastic. Hi, thank you for having me here. My name is Raúl T. Pereyra, and I'm calling from Clovis, California, the West Coast.
Okay. And can you tell me about your past leading up into your present?
Yes, for sure. So I think one of the biggest things I've now that I'm able to appreciate, believe it or not, and have some gratitude for, is that I grew up in a household with an alcoholic. So I grew up as a little kid all the way until now. My father still lives with me, and he's in his 80s. I'm still caring for him. So this is one of those ongoing traumatic experience I've had as a child, just watching him come in and not knowing if I'm going to get the loving, caring father or the chaotic father who would throw our house upside down. And this was just the norm. So you can only imagine, uh, always on eggshells, always on the defensive, not trusting love, not wanting to really engage in any meaningful loving, caring relationships, because the belief system I had back then is don't trust love because that shit does not matter and it's temporary.
How did you learn how to get out of those negative thinking habits, Rayo?
Well, Kimberly, the sad truth is this: for most of my uh, adult life, well, for most of my life, ex- uh, I was an alcoholic. I drank, I binge drank. I used to party hard, and I began to drink in middle school. I am in my early 50s now, um, and a health crisis happened to, what I thought happened to me back when it was COVID. And this was in 2020, I believe. And it was during Christmas. So, right around this same time. And I was rushed to the hospital, emergency appendicitis, and I went through a procedure, emergency, surgery. And the nurse said, "Hey, you're going to be in and out. Don't worry about it. Appendicitis. It's all good. It's all common." And that's what I thought. And I just remember looking down from the window at the hospital. This was in Berkeley, California, and looking down at my kids in their little rain boots because it was raining. It was Christmas Day. They couldn't come in because it was COVID. And my heart melted. I put my hand to the windshield. I was just looking down and I was like, no freaking way, just denial. This cannot be happening. I couldn't embrace my two children um, because it was COVID and I was needing that touch and I couldn't have it. And I thought everything was going to be okay, but that was a big moment where I began to transform inside. I was telling myself that I don't want to ever do anything to my body or my mental health that's going to land me back in the hospital. And that began kind of my deep thinking through my 3-month recovery, because I was in and out of the hospital of total at least 3 times. I've had 3 procedures. I had a pick line at home once we got home, and I lost all kinds of weight. And whether I was laying in the hospital
Can I
bed,
ask you
yes,
something? Was it the PIC line, the pain from the old appendicitis, or was it was that pain more bearable than the mental anguish you endured while during this training boot camp that you went through to change alcoholism into a more productive,
um,
less challenging
no,
thing?
no. I think the physical. I have a high level of tolerance of pain, so the physical pain was just a reminder, right? It was just one of those like, shoot, this really, really hurts. But I had a moment of clarity when I was laying in bed, where the emotional pain was stronger, where the emotional pain of like, what am I doing with my life? I've been drinking, I've been an alcoholic, I've been drinking all of my life. And I realized that whether I think it was in the hospital bed or at home, Remember, this is a 3-month process of recovery and surgeries in and out of the hospital. And I just wanted to, again, I cried so much. I wanted to stop and just say, you know what? I'm tired of being a victim. I'm tired of just letting life happen. And it was a moment where I said, this didn't happen to me. And again, it's all of it. It's the alcohol, growing up with an alcoholic, going through this appendicitis situation. I made a conscious effort in my mind that this happened for me. And it happened for me to create meaning to my past traumatic experience. It happened for me to learn from my uh, emotional health and to learn from the pain I was actually experiencing to do something about it. And what that moment taught me was this, that this we have sometimes don't have a choice of when life hits you in the face, but we have a choice on what to do afterward. What I decided to do is at that moment, I said, "I'm gonna stop drinking." This experience happened for me. I don't wanna say a second chance, and it sounds cliche-ish, but at the same time, it was my 2.0. I said, "I am freaking done with drinking. I am done with doing anything that's gonna take me further away from my kids and further away from my wife. I'm just done, done, done." And it was not anger, but it was resolve and conviction of my new belief system that was taking root. And that was my biggest turning point.
Can you tell me more about the in-depth of your belief system with the 2.0?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. That's really good. So I went all in on positive psychology, organizational psychology. My background is in adult learning development and human resources. So I always had a problem with people looking at me to be the one who fixes situations at the organizations or with leadership development and say, Raúl, just throw training at the problem, just write the policy. I always knew deep down inside that didn't never works because it has to be the internal work that you do first as a leader, right? It's the internal belief systems. So with that, I began my own healing process and I began going deep into organizational psychology and positive psychology. And I went through a group coaching, a challenge with Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And that's when I had my first emotional healing breakthroughs. And I began to refine my own approaches because it was working for me. The biggest takeaway from my own coaching and my own healing was learning how to reframe my experiences, whether it's in the present or in the past. And the biggest uh, breakthroughs for me was what I just said earlier. The past happened for me. I get to decide the narrative that's going to serve me. No longer was I the victim of an alcoholic parent. No longer was I the victim of alcoholism. And no longer was I the victim of appendicitis or this, the illness that happened to me. And I went deep into that. And I never looked back. And this is why now, I could smile and look at you and say, I am living with intent and with purpose, and I am making a difference in the lives of those people that I coach.
One thing to ping off of what you just said, one thing I do is I'll write down the negative thought that come in my head, and then I'll change it to what I want it positive to be and how I'm going to get there to the positivity. I always let that sink in my head. So how do you feel about your growing with 2.0? What is your future with your new identity, basically,
Yeah, but
as not being an
mhm.
alcoholic?
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that is how true transformation begins, right? If identified with the circle of friends that I hung out with and with alcoholism, then yeah, guess what? Tomorrow's gonna be more of the same. So I really had to make a dramatic change. And with that dramatic change, I created a framework. I call it the bag we carry. So just imagine that we all carry this big old bag that's filled with our past experiences, traumatic or just those that keep us stuck in the past. And bag stands for beliefs, assumptions, and guardians. And the beliefs are the belief systems that culturally and as kids that we grew up with and that help define who we are, our identity. And then the assumptions are those big old fat assumptions that hold those belief systems up. And then guardians are the protective behaviors or the protective concepts, such as perfectionism, the inner critic, the people pleaser, or the son of the victim of the alcoholic. Those are the guardians that say at some point they protected you, like overthinking or wanting to, like, if you wanted to be a better speaker and you had a bad experience in public speaking, your guardian is going to say in your mind, like, hey, careful, you sure you want to go down that road again? Last time you did some public speaking, you fell on your butt. People are going to laugh, so don't do it, right? And then you shrink. So that's what's in your bag. And what I do now is I help people unpack the bag, the beliefs, assumptions, and guardians, because once you have a deep self-awareness of your thinking, of those negative thoughts, Kimberly, as you opened up with, you're able to make a conscious effort in your mind and say, wait a second, I need to reframe that thought into something positive. Because that negative thought, the brain will work to make that negative thought come true. But the beautiful thing about the baggage that we have is a positive thought. Your brain will work towards making the positive come true.
If you could, well said,
Thank
by
you.
the way.
Thank you.
If you had to change or tell someone about alcoholism and like what else would you say towards that? You have the floor for like 2 minutes.
Okay, sounds good. So I think the biggest tool that people find very useful is the reframing of your experiences. Look, I'm not a therapist and I'm not an alcoholism therapy expert, but I can just tell you what worked for me. And once I made the shift in my mind, that's what worked for me. And in order to make that shift, I tell people the parable of the two arrows. The first arrow is thrown at you and it hits you and it hurts like heck. That's pain. That's real. That's the event. That's the alcoholism. Whether you're an alcoholic or you grew up with alcoholics, that's real. The second arrow is the one that you have a choice. You can either feel the first one, which is pain, or you can continue to suffer, which is the second one. And suffering is a choice.
If you could change anything or go back to the past and say, I wish I could have stopped this earlier, would you have, and how would you, and what date would that have been?
Wow, that's a really good question. But you have to remember that alcoholism for me, I was always in denial, and it was definitely a numbing and an escape. But my first marriage, over 20 years ago, I married my father. She was an alcoholic. It was party, 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 awesome, awesome, awesome. That now I can see how it happened for me, but I wish that I never went down that road of hurting people in relationships, because I met some good people, my sisters-in-laws, and I destroyed those relationships because I was a coward. I didn't say, I did, she said, she's the one who proposed to me, and me, like an idiot, said yes. So I wish I would have either um, prevented that, or after that marriage, I would have given up drinking. But the scary part is this: I am so in love with my current wife, my only love in my life, and my two children, that I couldn't change the past, because it would put my future into jeopardy.
Fair enough, because every instant that happened led you to this point where you learned life lessons.
Absolutely, and that's where if the past will teach you whether you're going to grow or you're going to learn. It's not a failure, and that's what I teach now. That's what helped me move forward with my life, and this is what I teach now. It's like you're either winning or learning or growing. You're never failing. You're never going to be a victim of your past.
Tell me about what it feels like when you felt that one day, like in your past, that you were like some type of failure. I don't think you're a coward, by the way. I wrote that down. I don't think you're a coward.
Thank you.
I just think you probably just were naive to certain things. Now that you're, elevated and clear, level headed, you see what you did.
Mhm.
So I don't think that makes you a coward.
No, and I appreciate that, and you're absolutely right. Um, as you can see, I'm still a student of my own teachings, right? Because you really, when you're reframing your past experiences, there's no need for you to be harsh and bad on yourself, on your past experience. That's who I was. That's the experience I went through at that time, and you're absolutely right. Now I'm able to say, okay, that even that marriage happened for me, and because now I was able and open to look for my wife, my second wife, my only wife, and without being open and vulnerable to that experience, then I never would have met her. Here's just really quick. Our second date, no, actually, our first date. We were talking on the phone a little bit, but our first actual date, I told her that, hey, I'm ready to go to the next level. If you're dating anybody else, that's cool. Don't tell me about it. But I'm telling you right now, I'm done. I'm done dating and I want to be with you seriously. And she kind of freaked out a little bit, but I wasn't playing any games, and I was just sick and tired of playing those games.
How does a happy marriage contribute to you being alcohol free every day? What do you do to keep wife happy? What do you do to keep yourself happy? What do you do to keep you guys together happy?
I love that question because really 2.0 started uh, 4 years ago and whatnot, almost 4 years ago, right? When I went through my illness. And in my transformation, I discovered a book called The Gap and the Gain, how you measure your happiness, and you measure it with what you actually achieved, not necessarily measuring it against where you're falling short into an ideal. So now my wife and I, the last 4 years, we on a go through what we call three wins, three daily wins. So in the evening, we talk about what are the three awesome, beautiful, grateful, gratitude uh, achievements that we did um, for the day, and then what are the next three wins that we're looking forward to in the next day. So we're constantly winning and we're constantly checking in, and it is hard, but it's also so beautiful because that's a page out of positive psychology. It's like measure the positiveness, measure the wins, and then you start moving towards just a more free and beautiful future with my wife. So we're on the same page, and we're not perfect. We have our ups and downs and our discussions and whatnot, disagreements, but at the same time we know that we're able to journal and able to check in every single night and really concentrate on what were the wins for that day. And just use your imagination. If we do this on a weekly basis, monthly, and then quarterly and annually, man, we're like racking up wins for the entire year. So we multiply that times 4 years. It's we're floating in positivity. We're floating in gains. We're floating in happiness.
How does religion and alcoholism, or, lack thereof right now, go hand in hand with you staying sober?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've never been a religious person per se. I grew up Catholic, and I used to hate going to church, but culturally and growing up in the Catholic faith has allowed me and be able to see even now supporting my children with a faith-based education with their own, like first communion and whatnot. And I see the value in that. So it's a small struggle that I personally have, but yet I find the value of it. And I find that I'm okay with that struggle mentally and even spiritually because I've been so used to in my life knowing that life is not black and white. There's a lot of grayness to that. And luckily, the balance is this that my wife is more spiritual, more of a devout Catholic than I am. So it works for us. And I understand that now as a grown man with two young children, that I want to surround my children and provide them with a foundation that is spiritually grounded, and I have to be able to show up. If there's no way I'm going to revert into becoming an alcoholic or irresponsible father. The church doesn't teach that, right? So that's my connection to it. But I'm also very honest with people. It's like there's some things I agree with, some things that I don't, and there I'm sure there may be some consequences, but at the same time, I know that it's great. It's a gray area for me for sure.
Do you have you time? Do you
I,
have quiet time? That's for all the men out there. They want to know.
I love it. I love it. Well, when I was in the hospital, looking down at my kids, on Christmas Day 4 years ago, in my mind, I kept thinking that, you know what, I don't want to ever do anything that's going to land me back in the hospital. And that means, of course, giving up alcohol, but also exercising more regularly. So I have a bicycle. I used to go for walks, and then I graduated to a bicycle. And it's difficult in the winter to go, but I have to glove up. But my me time is going on the trails in the mornings after I drop off the kids, and just get out there, put a nice audiobook. I believe in personal development and always growing. So my me time is my bicycle and my audiobooks. Yes, I am a big nerd and I'm okay with it. I love it.
What do your schedule? Well said, by the way. What is your schedule, by the way? How you without telling proprietary information? How do you keep a winning schedule?
How do I keep a winning schedule? That's really beautiful. Again, the setting my intentions for the next day, the three wins that I want to achieve for the next day is very key. Because if I say, like, for example, Kimberly, you're going to be one of my big wins today. I wrote it down last night. Have a fantastic show with Kimberly Cloud. And that's a big win, right? So that's how I'm keeping true to myself. So if I'm able to achieve those three wins for today, I try to achieve them early in the morning. And then this way I have my big win in the afternoons, which is picking up my kids or being present for my wife, making sure we have dinner and whatnot, and kind of closing out the day that way. I reserve the first part of my work day in the mornings. I do this part time, in terms of coaching and leadership development and training. My mornings are reserved for me. My name is Raúl Torres Pereyra. People call me RTP. So I have RTP learning is morning time, and then RTP, the husband, the father, is in the afternoons. And I
I like that.
I don't like commingling because I have to be true to myself.
Do you and your wife or do your kids get included as a family, a cohesive family with the events that are going to happen, like with cooking and cleaning and everything?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I have a 8-year old and an 11-year old, and I think my son he's taking after me. I love creating and cooking and being very creative. I used to help my mom, used to help my uncle, rest in peace, cook, and now my son is picking that up. So in the last two, maybe actually longer, maybe past 3-4 years, it started with blending milkshakes and that kind of thing, then pancakes and now stir fry. So yeah, they help out as much as they can. My son is pretty creative, believe it or not. Being a boy, he's very uh, goal oriented or hard headed. Sometimes people call it, but that's also a plus because if he says he wants to make pasta, if we bought him a fresh pasta machine, he's gonna make fresh pasta, and we're like, okay, we're gonna support you with it. So we certainly try to keep our kids as much as involved with all of our belief systems, and we always ask them in the evening. We do prayers in the evening. We ask them, okay, what's at least one win that you had today, and then what's one win that you want to see for tomorrow. We don't do three for them, but at least my daughter, that she's very cute, she's always, oh, I'm gonna go see my friends and play, have fun. And for my son, it's a little deeper. He'll be like, you know what, I think I'm gonna have a good grade for my test on Friday. So we're starting to nurture them and support them with their own emotional well-being so they can start measuring their achievements, and they can always also get into the habit of having a winning streak so they can be happy in the present based on the achievement, not based on an ideal.
Well said. And what would you have to tell them if they became your age and they watched this tape?
Well, they don't know that I've been married the first time, so that would be
Mhm,
difficult.
mhm.
But you know what? I'm very sincere and honest with them, and I would just break it down to them. And they'll ask me, "Why did you marry her?" and what happened. I would be super truthful with them because I don't want them to make the same mistake uh, that I settled. That's a big lesson right there. Never settle, and that's really the only thing that worries me about watching this as they get older. Well, I don't want to say it's a worry, but that's the only topic that as a responsible parent I would really have to help break down to them.
What did you do for them to protect them? That's what I want to know. What have you like? How have you protected them? Like so they know that what you did was to protect them and not to hurt them.
Oh, yes,
You see what I'm
absolutely.
saying?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's because my wife and I are modeling what a loving, caring, nurturing relationship looks like. That's what we want to preserve. So for me as dad, my son looks up to me and my daughter as well. There's no room for me at least at this time of their young development to kind of start talking about these adult themes. So as they get older and these questions do come up, I'm going to break it down to them, um, age appropriate, right? Depending on when they ask. If they're into adulthood, and then that's the conversation we'll have. It's more of an adult conversation. But yes, absolutely. I'm not going to raise this because I'm protecting them and my family, and the love I have is very sacred to me, and I'm living on purpose and with intention because of them.
Wow, that is awesome. Okay. Do you have anything else on your mind right now before we close?
Well, the only thing in my mind is because I'm so compelled to share my story in that I developed my framework that I shared with you, and that I'm offering a 5-day free. It's a gift to the listeners, a 5-day confidence challenge, especially if you're a new leader, like a CEO, or just a new leader, and you're stepping into a bigger role, and confidence is holding you back. The inner critic, the people pleasing, that kind of thing. And if you're sick and tired of that, and you just need to break free from the baggage or the story that's holding you back, then I challenge you in a beautiful way. It's a 5-day challenge to see how much you can transform in 5 days. Those old belief systems, believe me, will keep you stuck. So that's that. If you want to start your path towards healing and becoming more effective and more confident, then I do have a challenge for the listeners. It's one-on-one private coaching, and you can apply at my website, which is rtplearning.com/tiny tiny.
Okay. And once again, just repeat for my iteration, how can the people reach you?
So you can, I'm on LinkedIn, Raúl T. Pereyra. I'm also on Facebook here. You can reach me here. And I do have a website, and there's ways you can reach me through my website. It's rtplearning.com, Raúl Torres Pereira, rtplearning.com. Would love to hear from you. Tell me what's going on. And I hope that my story inspires you to take a quick look at perhaps your own stories and what might be holding you back, and what's the narrative that for 2026 that you want to change.
Well said. Stay on the line, Raul. Thank you
Absolutely.
guys for joining my show today. Take care, be safe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.